And once again, I want to say greetings to each and every one of you. And welcome, Aquaba. Welcome to another round of the Conscious Rasta Report here on the LIB Radio, LIB TV, and LivingInBlack.com networks. My name is Keedy Awadu, a.k.a. The Conscious Rasta. Weekday mornings, you and I get together live from 9 a.m. Pacific Time, that's 12 noon Eastern Time, 5 p.m. GMT, and 7 p.m. East Africa Time. We get together to deal with the broad spectrum of activities related to human development and progress. Today's date is Monday, the 21st of October, 2024. In the Western calendar, this corresponds to the year 6265. In the Kemetic calendar, to which we have realigned our cultural clock. Welcome to the 7th millennium. You have found your family in a peaceful place here on LIB Radio, LIB TV, here on LivingInBlack.com. We have here today our second in the series of broadcasts showcasing research that is from my upcoming book, the book entitled Disaster Preparedness for World Wars 5 and 6. Hopefully, you will be informed, enlightened, inspired by what you hear today to examine world events, global events from a distinct perspective. Again, the title, Disaster Preparedness for World Wars 5 and 6, which I contend have already appeared. Let us go into our research. We're early in the book. Today, our chapter focus is on, and let me just pull up this description, World War I, the beginning of the end of the age of empires. Today on LIB Radio, we began our detailed analyses of the series of global conflicts that would be considered, quote, world wars, unquote, beginning with the Great War. At its core, it was primarily a conflict between older existing empires to determine which would rule vast parts of the globe and exploit the natural resources and labor of indigenous peoples that they conquered. So that is going to take us into, that's a description of going into the book. What I'm going to do is kind of clear my desk. I got a lot of material over the weekend that's kind of piled up amongst my desks, on my desk, and amongst the various search engines, etc. We welcome you to the conversation today, wherever you're joining us from. Our primary vehicle, and I'm going to be monitoring the chat on our Rumble page. For those of you familiar with our Rumble page, we are at LIB Radio on Rumble. We're also simulcasting on YouNow. And welcome to the YouNow family. Always great to have you in the house. We are on Facebook Live. Today, we're broadcasting live on my secondary YouTube page, as well as broadcasting every day, all day long, on our TuneIn app at LIB Radio. Let's get into the research for today. Where are we at? I'm writing on the book. I'm pulling up the book, going to push it over here on my desktop. Disaster Preparedness for World Wars 5 and 6 is the name of the book. Today's chapter, World War I, the beginning of the end of the age of empires. I began this chapter with this quotation from the author Ernest Hemingway, who wrote, and I quote, "In our time, we have seen the world change in ways that we could not have imagined. The Great War was a turning point, a moment when the old world ended and a new one began." That quote from Ernest Hemingway. I began this chapter with a sub-chapter, The Deadly Legacy of Empires at the beginning of the 20th century. Today, from a distinctly Pan-African perspective, I deconstruct a typical analytical viewpoint of, quote, the Great War, unquote, which most reports call World War I. The descriptions of these conflicts that I will share will sharply contrast with what has been fed to us through public education and mass media over our lifetime. I hope that this narrative informs, inspires, and excites you to a fresh perspective of the world's shared history. I also hope that this novel narrative can illuminate a solid pathway toward global peace and understanding. And here's what I have to do. I don't know whether you can hear it, but it's a little disturbing. Someone has got a leaf blower going outside. And so let me just kind of double paint them off and take them out of the mix today. My apologies for that. Let's continue. So today we began our detailed analysis of the series of global conflicts that would be considered world wars, beginning with the Great War. At its core, it was primarily a conflict between older existing empires to determine which would rule vast parts of the globe and exploit the natural resources and labor of indigenous peoples that they conquered. We have so often been fed biased propaganda that tends to paint conflicts in terms of black and white, the good guys versus the bad guys, us versus them, and other overly simplistic dichotomies. There is our story, their story, and the truth. This is what we're often told. To be honest, cultural bias has a lot to do with the telling of history, and the world is not monocultural. One thing missing from the spectrum of historical perspectives shared about the world and its past, present, and future is a mature and insightful Pan-African viewpoint. It is my duty with this book to set a new narrative into motion. I hope that what I will be sharing in this book makes a lot of sense. Let us begin by examining the foundation and the emergence of the first global conflagration of the 20th century, which was referred to by many people at that time as, quote, the Great War, unquote. As I have proposed that the fundamental conflicts of that war were centered upon a contest for domination among empires. It serves our comprehension of this clash with a fitting definition of what constitutes an empire. The American Heritage Dictionary of the English Language offers the following. An empire is an unequal relationship between a core state and a periphery of one or more states controlled from the core. At its heart, an empire is ruled by an emperor, although many states in history without an emperor at their head are also referred to as empires. The earliest city-states attempted to grow by taking over their neighbors, and this idea lies at the core of the common use of the term empire and is as old as state building itself. In essence, an empire is a political construct where one state dominates over another state or series of states. with the dominant state exercising control and authority over the subordinate states. This definition encompasses various historical examples, including ancient empires such as Sumeria, the Akkadian Empire, Babylonia, Assyria, the Roman Empire, and others, as well as modern-day interpretations of empires. Now that was from the American Heritage Dictionary of the English Language. I wrote, another of the ancient empires not mentioned by the American Heritage Dictionary is the Persian Empire, also referred to as the Achaemenid Empire, which encompassed much of modern Iran and which came into being around 550 BC, before the Common Era. Now, again, that was a reference in addition to the numerous references of ancient empires. I continue writing, as the 20th century commenced, multiple large and powerful Eurasian empires existed, each with its distinct background, status, and influence. Let's examine 10 of the most influential empires at that time, 7 of which had a direct effect on the Great War. These 10 include, number 1, the Russian Empire. Spanning across Europe and Asia, it was one of the largest empires in history, known for its vast territory and diverse population. The largest empire in Eurasia, it spanned Eastern Europe, Northern Asia, and parts of North America. And it absorbed many neighboring territories, including the Khanates of Khiva, Bukhara, and Kokand. The Russian Empire was a major political and military power, but faced internal strife, including revolutionary movements that would eventually lead to the Russian Revolution in 1917. Number 2 on our list of empires, the British Empire. The largest empire in history, it controlled territories on every inhabited continent, including India, Australia, and parts of Africa. While primarily recognized for its colonies around the globe, the British Empire had also significant territories in Eurasia, including territories in the Middle East. At the beginning of the 20th century, it was at the height of its power, but it faced rising nationalist movements across its colonies. Number 3, German Empire. Established in 1871, it was a major European power with significant influence in Central Europe. The German Empire was a powerful industrial and military nation. It was involved in various alliances and rivalries that contributed to the tensions leading up to World War I. Number 4, Austro-Hungarian Empire. A dual monarchy in Central and Eastern Europe, it was a major political and cultural force. This empire was a multi-ethnic state in Central and Eastern Europe. It was characterized by tensions among its various ethnic groups and was facing challenges that would contribute to its eventual dissolution after World War I. Number 5 on this list of major, powerful, influential empires, the Ottoman Empire. Although significantly reduced from its medieval peak, this Islamic configuration spanned parts of Southeast Europe, Western Asia, and North Africa. By the latter part of the 19th century, it was a major power in the region, even challenging to conquer Eastern Europe in the latter part of the century. Centered in modern-day Turkey, the Ottoman Empire was in decline by the early 20th century. It had lost significant territories in the Balkans and North Africa, and it faced internal struggles, including ethnic nationalism among various groups within its borders. Number 6, French colonial empire. At the beginning of the 20th century, the French colonial empire spanned various regions, including Africa, Asia, the Americas, and the Pacific. Colonized territories included Senegal, Guinea, French Sudan, today is modern Mali, Ivory Coast, Cote d'Ivoire, Benin, Niger, Chad, Central African Republic, the Republic of the Congo, Gabon, Cameroon, Mauritania, the Obock territory, now modern-day Djibouti, Indochina, parts of India, Polynesia, as well as colonies in the Caribbean and Central America. Number 7, the Qing dynasty, China. The last imperial dynasty of China, it had a large population and ruled over a vast territory that spanned East Asia, including China proper, Mongolia, Tibet, and Xinjiang. By the start of the 20th century, the Qing dynasty was in a state of decline, facing internal rebellions and external pressures from foreign powers. The 1911 revolution would eventually lead to the establishment of the Republic of China. Number 8 on our list of 10, Japanese Empire. Emerging as a major power in East Asia, it had significant influence and control of the Western Pacific Rim. Following its rapid modernization and military expansion, Japan became a major power in East Asia, having annexed Taiwan, Korea, and parts of Manchuria. Its influence extended into China and Southeast Asia. The Japanese Empire played a significant role in World War I, entering the conflict on the side of the Allies, the Entente, in 1914. Number 9, Spanish Empire. Although its power had waned, it still controlled territories in the Americas and the Philippines. And number 10 on this list of empires at the beginning of the 20th century, the Portuguese Empire. It maintained colonies in Africa, Asia, and South America, though its influence was declining. Among the key characteristics of these Eurasian empires were, and again, 7 of the 10 I mentioned were directly involved in the Great War. But among the key characteristics were included, point, colonial and imperial legacies. Many of these empires had inherited territories and systems from earlier empires, such as the Mongols, Persians, and Romans. Point 2, economic and cultural exchange. Eurasian empires had long facilitated trade, cultural exchange, and migration across the continent, shaping the development of cities, languages, and technologies. The rise of nationalism. As the 20th century began, nationalist movements were emerging within these empires, seeking greater autonomy or independence, which would eventually contribute to their decline and transformation. These empires played crucial roles in shaping global politics, culture, and economics during the early 20th century. By that time, however, the traditional empires of Eurasia were facing internal challenges, external pressures, and the rise of new powers, setting the stage for a complex and transformative century, as well as setting the stage for wars of unprecedented violence. So, next subchapter. So we've given you a background, the deadly legacies of empires at the beginning of the 20th century. So now let's go to the next subchapter of this chapter, World War I, the beginning of the end of the Age of Empires. This subchapter, the causes of the global conflagration. I've listed just a few of these causes. I probably will be adding more to them, including well, let's just go through the ones that I have listed, read what I've written, and then I just added one more. The causes of the global conflagration. Point number one, mutual defense alliances. Countries form treaties, binding them to defend each other in case of attack. This led to a complex web of alliances, making it difficult to remain neutral. And this is, of course, being similarly a case of what's happening with the North Atlantic Treaty Organization, binding together this conflagration or this configuration of the U.S., Canada, Australia, which is not a North Atlantic Treaty territory, but to also the NATO countries, led by France, Germany, Britain, Italy, and others. But these binding mutual defense alliances, very problematic, very problematic. Point number two, imperialism. European powers competed for colonies and territories, leading to rivalries, tensions, and conflicts over resources, trade, and influence, and of course resulting in genocidal policies among those nations conquered, often leading, I'm just writing this in, to genocidal policies over those conquered territories. No doubt whatsoever. We continue the causes of the global conflagration. Number 3.3, militarism, arms races, and military buildups, particularly in naval power, created an atmosphere of aggression and competition. Point 4, nationalism, strong feelings of national identity and patriotism contributed to a sense of superiority and rivalry among empires. And that superiority could also be called supremacy and rivalry among empires, making conflicts more likely. And one more point I added to the causes of the global conflagration are culture and civilization. And we're reminded of that statement from Samuel P. Huntington's book, The Clash of Civilizations. And Huntington wrote, and I'm paraphrasing, the most important conflicts of the future will be determined along the fault lines separating one civilization from another. And as we understand the critical role of culture in determining the destinies of large groups of people. Culture is language, religion, traditions, historical perspective, values and morality, and logical way of thinking. As we understand that cultures are distinct, they differ, and they clash, that we can understand the clash of civilizations in the context of what was happening to lead to the Great War, so-called World War One, but also as they continue to lead to ongoing conflict around the world. Let's now talk about the hallmarks. What are some of the hallmarks of World War One? Some of this will overlap. Hallmarks include: point one, complex system of alliances. The intricate network of treaties and agreements created a situation where a single conflict could escalate into a global war. Point two, the rise of imperial rivalries. That's what this chapter is really all about. European powers vied for colonies and territories, leading to competition and conflict over resources and influence. And I would say European and Eurasian, which is the word Eurasian. So let me just put that in. Eurasian powers, EURASIAN. Eurasian powers vied for colonies and territories, leading to competition and conflict over resources and influence, leading to jealousy, competition, and conflict. Point number three, arms races. The buildup of military forces, particularly naval power, created an atmosphere of aggression and competition. Many new, ever deadlier weapons were introduced during the Great War, including machine guns, submarines, gas warfare, tanks, aircraft, vastly upgraded field artillery, trench mortars, and flamethrowers. This new level of lethality has caused many to call the First World War, quote, the first industrialized war, unquote. Next point, nationalist sentiments. Strong feelings of national identity and patriotism contributed to a sense of supremacy and rivalry among nations, making conflicts more likely. And I would say racial superiority instead of just superiority or supremacy, a racial superiority. So that brings us up to now the spark that lit the fire. An assassination triggered an explosive outbreak, the explosive outbreak of war. And here, just let me real quick assign a style to this particular header. Bear with me. This is in the background, how I write books. Have to do a lot of editing. Sometimes I want to edit in real time. The outbreak of World War I was triggered by a series of interconnected events. The conflict between Serbia and the Austro-Hungarian Empire that contributed to the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand was rooted in the nationalistic tensions and the desire for independence among Slavic peoples in the Balkans. Independence from the Austro-Hungarian Empire, that's a real important point. Independence from the empire among Slavic peoples in the Balkans. Here are several key points. The first point is nationalism. Serbia, which had gained independence from the Ottoman Empire in the 19th century, was a strong proponent of Slavic nationalism. Many Serbs sought to unite all South Slavic peoples, including those living under Austro-Hungarian rule. Point 2, Austro-Hungarian control. The Austro-Hungarian Empire included a significant Slavic population, particularly in regions like Bosnia and Herzegovina, I should say, which were annexed by Austria-Hungary in 1908. This annexation angered many Serbs who viewed it as an attempt to suppress Slavic nationalism. Point 3, desire for a greater Serbia. Serbian nationalists, particularly those associated with the Black Hand secret society, aimed to create a greater Serbia that would include all ethnic Serbs and other South Slavic groups. They viewed the Austro-Hungarian Empire as an obstacle to this goal. Next point, the assassination plot. The assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand was part of a broader plan by Serbian nationalists to strike against Austro-Hungarian authority. The Archduke was seen as a symbol of oppression, and killing him was intended to provoke a crisis that would lead to greater Serbian independence. And again, the Archduke Franz Ferdinand, heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne, to the imperial throne, was part. This assassination was part of a broader plan. And last point, leading to the outbreak of the war, tensions in the Balkans. The Balkans were a region of intense political and ethnic conflict, with various nationalist groups vying for power. The assassination occurred against this backdrop of rising tensions and competing national interests. And again, we also keep in mind that the word slave, S-L-A-V-E, is derived from the experience of the Slavic peoples of the region, giving us a good background of what they had endured for centuries. So, the assassination on June 28, 1914, set off a chain of events that ultimately led to the outbreak of World War I. As it escalated existing tensions between Serbia and Austria-Hungary and drew in their respective allies. Here is a sequence of key events that led to the war. June 28, 1914, the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. The heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne was assassinated in Sarajevo by Gavrilo Princip, a member of a nationalist group seeking independence for Serbia. June 23, 1914. Or July, not June, because the first event, June 28. July 23, 1914, Austro-Hungarian ultimatum to Serbia. Austria-Hungary issued an ultimatum to Serbia with demands that were intentionally harsh, expecting Serbia to reject them. July 25th. 2 days later, Serbia's response. Serbia agreed to most of the demands but rejected some, particularly those that infringed on its sovereignty. July 28th, Austria-Hungary declares war. Austria-Hungary declared war on Serbia, marking the official start of hostilities. July 30, 1914. Again, Serbia is a Slavic nation. Slavic equates to, although it's not synonymous with Slavic, with Orthodox Christianity. And that was their spiritual alignment there in this part of the world, Orthodox Christianity, while the Austria-Hungarian Empire was Reformed Roman Christianity in the aftermath of the Reformation. So now the outbreak of hostilities, Austria-Hungary, July 28 declares war on Serbia. July 30th, Russia mobilizes. In defense of Serbia, Russia began mobilizing its army, which was seen as a direct threat by Austria-Hungary and its ally, Germany. August 1st, Germany's ultimatum to Russia. Germany issued an ultimatum to Russia to cease mobilization, which was ignored. August 1st, Germany declares war on Russia. Following Russia's continued mobilization, Germany declared war on Russia. So at this particular point now we have four principal entities in the war. We have Serbia, Austria-Hungary, Russia, and Germany. August 3, Germany declares war on France. Germany declared war on France, anticipating that France would support Russia. The killing of Archduke Franz Ferdinand of Austria-Hungary by Gavrilo Princip, a Serbian nationalist, sparked a chain reaction of diplomatic crisis and military mobilizations, ultimately leading to the outbreak of a much wider war. August 4, 1914, Britain declares war on Germany. Britain signed the Treaty of London in 1839, which guaranteed Belgium's neutrality. When Germany violated this neutrality by invading Belgium as part of its military strategy to quickly defeat France, Britain issued an ultimatum to Germany to withdraw its forces, which the Germans failed to comply with. October 29, 1914, the Ottoman Empire entered World War I. In August 1914, the Ottomans signed a secret alliance with Germany. The Ottomans initially sought to remain neutral, but the empire had been in decline and it sought to regain lost territories and strengthen its position. Under German command, the Ottoman Navy attacked Russian ports in the Black Sea in October, prompting Russia to declare war on the Ottomans, leading to the Ottomans formally entering the conflict on the side of the Central Powers alongside Germany and Austria-Hungary. So we can see that these alliances and treachery dragged ever more and more nations into this transnational conflagration known as the Great War. Again, begins with Serbia and Austria-Hungary, then includes Russia, Germany joins, and because of an alliance between France and Russia, Germany declares war against France, but to conquer France or to go to war against France, Germany has to violate Belgian neutrality, and because of the alliance between the Belgians and the British are joined in. And then the Ottomans are joined in to recover their territories, some of which have been occupied by Russians and British and French. So the Ottoman Empire joins along with the Central Powers. Hallmarks of World War I. What were some of these outstanding key hallmarks? World War I, also known as the Great War, had several hallmarks and causes that contributed to its outbreak. Here is a summary of these hallmarks. Number one, trench warfare. A significant characteristic, particularly on the Western Front, where soldiers fought from deep trenches, leading to a stalemate and horrific living conditions. Two, total war. Involved the mobilization of entire nations and economies, not just armies, impacting civilians and industries. Point three, new military technologies. The war saw the introduction of tanks, airplanes, machine guns, and chemical weapons, which changed the nature of warfare. Number four, global conflict. While centered in Europe, the war involved many nations worldwide, including colonies, leading to battles in Africa, Asia, and the Middle East, and eventually drawing in the Japanese Empire as well. Eventually drawing in the powerful Japanese Empire. And point number five, political changes. The war led to significant political upheaval, including the fall of empires, Austro-Hungary, Ottoman, Russian, and German, and the rise of new ideologies. So let's go back again. We're going to talk about core causes. We're getting real specific here. And this, again, is distinct and different from much of what we were taught within the standardized European education. Core causes of World War I. Number one on my list, the Russo-Japanese War. The 20th century began with a war between the Japanese and Russian empires. The Russo-Japanese War was fought between the Russian Empire and the Empire of Japan between 1904 and 1905 over rival imperial ambitions in Manchuria and the Korean Empire. I would say the Korean Peninsula, because you're just not getting references to a Korean Empire at that time. The Japanese Empire played a significant role in World War I, entering the conflict on the side of the Allies, the Entente, in 1914. Now, interesting because that alliance also included Russia, which joined the alliance somewhere around that time. Well, they had their different alliances we spoke about earlier between Russia and France. Point two, again, the core causes of World War I. Point two, Islamic challenge to Christian Europe. The Ottoman Empire, which reigned from 1299 to 1922, was a vast and influential Islamic state that left a profound legacy in the realms of politics, economy, culture, and religion. The Ottoman Empire had nearly conquered Europe in the latter part of the 19th century, which led into the 20th century. They were a major target for assault after the Great War broke out in 1914. Point number three of the core causes: militarism, the arms race, and the glorification of military power among European nations increased tensions. Number 4, alliances. Complex alliances, such as the Triple Alliance, Germany, Austria, Hungary, and Italy, formed on May 20, 1882, and the Triple Entente, France, UK, Russia, formed by the French-British Entente Cordiale in 1904. These meant that a conflict involving one country could quickly involve others. And as we could see, the quick involvement of others in the conflicts of one of the countries of these was happening within days, within the same week. Next point, imperialism, competition for colonies and resources, heightened rivalries among European powers, and sparked, I would say, and sparked growing hostility among those nationalists, among nationalists among the conquered, nationalists within the conquered cultures. So let me repeat that one. Imperialism, competition for colonies and resources, heightened rivalries among European powers, and sparked growing hostility among nationalists within the conquered territories. And the next point, nationalism. Intense national pride and ethnic tensions, particularly in the Balkans, contributed to conflicts. And the Balkans were a very distinct group of cultures there. You had Islamic culture, you had Slavic culture, you had Eastern Orthodox Christianity, you had Western Christianity, you have all of these rivalries. You have multiple languages being spoken across this region of the Balkans, as well as Austro-Hungary Empire, which was dominating over the Balkans. So we can see a lot of different problems there. And then what contributed to the core is, again, returning to the assassination of Archduke Franz Ferdinand. The immediate trigger of the war occurred on June 28, 1914, not 2014, June 28, 1914, when the heir to the Austro-Hungarian throne was assassinated in Sarajevo, which was under the administration of Austria-Hungary at the time, leading to a series of diplomatic calamities and crises. These factors combined to create a volatile environment that ultimately resulted in the outbreak of World War I in 1914. So, next section, subchapter of the book, and the last chapter, subchapter of this chapter, the aftermath of the Great War on geopolitical development. I write, it is not the mission of this book, nor do I have enough space herein to adequately describe the details of the hundreds of battlefronts of World War I. Within this book, I intend to describe the sequence of global conflicts that followed and how they are interconnected. Therefore, we must examine the aftermath of each of these conflicts' resolution. While a complete description of the aftermath of the Great War would take an entire series of volumes to detail, let's share a few powerful highlights of what changes in global affairs resulted from these conflicts. In the aftermath of World War I, I am describing the major changes in global affairs. This paragraph will be taken out, didn't need to be in there, that resulted from the battles between and the two warring alliances. The aftermath of World War I saw a profound reshaping of global affairs with far-reaching consequences. The war's outcome led to, point one, the Treaty of Versailles. The treaty imposed heavy reparations on Germany and withdrew national borders, sowing seeds of future conflicts. The German, Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, and Russian empires ceased to exist. New nations emerged, and existing ones regained independence, such as Poland, Czechoslovakia, and Yugoslavia. 2, redrawing of borders. And I would say also the Russian Empire was replaced by the Union of Soviet Socialist Republics, USSR, a Marxist slash socialist empire of its own. Point two, the redrawing of borders. The Treaty of Versailles and other peace treaties led to the dissolution of empires such as the Austro-Hungarian, Ottoman, German, and Russian empires. New nations were created, including Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, and Poland, often with borders that did not reflect the ethnic and cultural realities of the regions. And there were even more. I'm thinking of Azerbaijan and what's that one? They're still at conflict with each other. Brain's not on that right now. I'll pull that up. Azerbaijan, and because there was a genocide against the people there right around that time. That was very important. And here, let me just put in the word so I'll look it up later. Azerbaijan. Terrible spelling. Was that right spelling? I'll get it right here. Okay. So I'll come back to that a little bit later. Again, just getting through what I've been writing so far for the book. I think you get a good understanding. Let me just double check and make sure if I have an audience today who's with me that I acknowledge you, give you your respect, your big ups, your peeps, your props. I do have a good sized audience, but no one is talking to me on the Rumble. I do have an audience on you now. Great always to have you with us. I hope you are enjoying the conversation today, and I hope you find it informative, inspiring, and exciting. I actually love history, and I have studied these histories for quite some time, but now I am studying these histories at a whole another level. Going forward, back to the text, we're talking about the aftermath of the Great War on geopolitical development. We got up to point number 3. The Austro-Hungarian Empire's dissolution led to the creation of independent nations in Central and Eastern Europe. These included new nations such as Czechoslovakia, Yugoslavia, Austria, Hungary, and the expansion of Italy and Poland. Point 4, the Ottoman Empire's territorial losses resulted in the modern-day borders of Turkey, as well as the British and French empires expanded with the confiscation of land from the dissolution of the Ottoman Empire. Point 5, the Russian Empire's collapse led to the establishment of the Soviet Union and the independence of several nations, including Finland, Estonia, Latvia, and Lithuania. Oh, I'm thinking of, was the nation Armenia, I was thinking Azerbaijan and Armenia have been at war really non-stop for the century, still going at each other periodically. Point 6, the rise of new powers. The war marked the emergence of the United States, France, and Britain as dominant world powers. United States in particular gained significant influence and economic strength, while Germany and Austria-Hungary were severely weakened. Number 7, the rise of nationalism. The war intensified nationalist sentiments in various regions. Many ethnic groups sought self-determination, leading to independence movements in colonial territories and former empires. The rise of nationalism would later contribute to conflicts in the interwar period and beyond. Point number 8, the League of Nations and the idea of collective security. The Treaty of Versailles established the League of Nations, an international organization aimed at preventing future wars through collective security and diplomacy. Although the League ultimately failed to prevent World War II, it represented a significant attempt to promote international cooperation and prevent aggression. And I must say also, the League totally ignored colonialism and the suppression of human rights amongst many people of the Southern Hemisphere. Very important. Point number 9, economic consequences in the aftermath of the war. The war led to widespread economic devastation, hyperinflation, and debt. The Treaty of Versailles imposed harsh reparations on Germany, contributing to widespread resentment and setting the stage for Nazi Germany's rise to power. Setting the stage for the collapse, I should say, the collapse of the Weimar, W-E-I-M-A-R, the Weimar Republic, and Nazi Germany's rise to power. The war caused massive economic disruption. European economies were devastated, leading to widespread unemployment and inflation. The United States emerged as a leading economic power, while European nations struggled to recover, setting the stage for economic instability in the 1920s and 1930s, which led to the Great Depression that impacted the industrial world. And point number 10, shift in global trade and finance. The war disrupted global trade and finance, leading to the rise of the United States as a dominant economic power. The British Empire's economic dominance was also challenged, while Germany's economy was severely weakened. And point number 11, nationalism and self-determination. The war fueled nationalist movements, particularly in Eastern Europe and the Middle East. The principle of self-determination enshrined in the Treaty of Versailles led to the creation of new nations and the redrawing of borders along ethnic and national lines. Overall, the aftermath of World War I set the stage for significant geopolitical changes, social transformations, and economic challenges that would shape the 20th century and beyond. While attempts like the League of Nations signaled an attempt to instigate global governance from a more humane and logical perspective, the perpetuation of empires, wholesale exploitation of the lands of indigenous peoples, colonialism, and wars of conquest spoiled such hopes for a greater destiny for humankind. Ultimately, these imbalances in human rights led to the even greater conflicts that we are calling world wars to follow. And that is the end of the chapter. What I'm writing about bear with me. Don't do that, do this. What I'm writing about in this book is the rise of world wars. Tomorrow we're going to move to the interim period between World War I and World War II, and then start to talk about World War II in the context of the rise of fascist order. And fascism becomes a direct challenge to quote unquote democracy, colonial empires, and neo-colonialism. So that's where we're going to go with tomorrow's study. What did you think? Do you think I'm on to something? Again, the book is entitled Disaster Preparedness for World Wars V and VI. The idea of World War III, we're going to dismiss much of the dialogue you're hearing nowadays, the risk of World War III, risk of World War III. World War III is not completely gone, but World War III was very well defined, and just because the educational process and the mass media don't acknowledge what you and I know to have happened, doesn't mean we have to go along with their perspective of history. And that's a very foolish position. Just because they won't say World War III, World War IV, doesn't mean that we don't have an obligation to say it in order to be accurate. Being distinct from a limited perspective is good for us. It's good for our development. It's good for the world. We got to realize that. So we're going to continue this study. I anticipate this book to be ready by the end of the year. And I anticipate that we'll be able to use this toward a new perspective of wherein lies our greatest power and destiny toward sovereign and sustainable Pan-African development. A world of peace and prosperity for all groups, for all ethnicities. You've been tuned in to LIB Radio, LIB TV, and livinginblack.com. I hope you have enjoyed what I had to share today. I like it. I learned a lot in putting this research together, and we'll continue to learn and grow and define these things that we have in common, hopefully towards greater understanding, greater sovereign and sustainable development. You've been tuned into your favorite. We aim to be your favorite. We are LIB Radio. We are livinginblack.com. I wish you all peace and prosperity to each and every one of you on your favorite LIB Radio, LIB TV, and livinginblack.com. Peace, y'all.